so that food is cursed. All right, so we are going in. Thank you to all that brought the food. I don't know what happened, but God bless you. It was nice to have a nice selection of food. And I know that I had mentioned last week about having a lot of food for this new series, and I hope you didn't mistake today for the new series, because we're going to need big time stuff next week. But anyway, that's coming to the end of the session. We'll talk about it. So, we open up with Proverbs 21:5. It says, the plans of hardworking people earn a profit, but those who act too quickly become poor. And throughout the series, we've been talking about don't look at get rich quick schemes. Don't look at trying to invest your money into things that, are for the wrong reasons. Everything is slow and go. If you're trying to do things fast, then typically what happens is it happens for the wrong reason, and things don't necessarily turn out the way that you want them to turn out. When a contractor builds a house, they don't simply turn to a gang of carpenters, and I use that term loosely, gang of carpenters, plumbers, and electricians, and turn them loose and tell them to do whatever comes naturally, counting on them to figure out what the house should look like and how to build it. But instead, the contractor works from a blueprint or a plan. And likewise, a football team isn't a bunch of athletes just coming together, running around in confusion. The team is following a game plan. Well, your team, husband and wife, should also approach life purposefully. All the Bible says is the wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways. Too many have no clear understanding about what we're doing, why we're doing it, or where we're going. Instead of frantically running around, we need a game plan to pay for daily living expenses, tithes and offerings, savings, kids' educations, and retirement. I was listening to K-Frog this morning on the way to church. And on Sundays, there's a guy that has a program on, and all he does is he talks about mortgages and refinances. And it's for this new house funding or whatever the case may be. But the guy fields questions every Sunday. And I am amazed at people's lack of knowledge of life when it comes to the basics. One of the calls that he took this morning was, this guy seriously sounded like he was in his late 40s, early 50s, possibly even 60s. And he said, I'm currently renting, and because mortgage rates are so low, I really want to buy a house. But if I buy a house, my rent or my lease contract doesn't end until August. So is there a way for me to break my contract? What? Okay, there's a contradiction of terms there. Break and contract, okay, is a contradiction of terms. So the guy says, no, you pretty much have to obligate yourself to the term of the lease. If you tell your landlord you're leaving and he does his duty and finds someone else to rent it, then you would only be obligated for the period of time that he didn't have someone in there. So he says, well, would I, if I got out of the lease, do I have to pay all the months that are due on the contract? Bottom line is this is basic knowledge, folks. This is basic knowledge. If you enter a lease agreement, a rental agreement, or any kind of agreement for 6 months, what makes you think that it's going to be less than 6 months? Unless the person who's renting it to you defaults on their end of the contract, and then that gives you an ability. But in a perfect world, when everybody's following what they're supposed to do, that's what a contract is for a certain period of time. And that is their plan to be able to come forth with either a lease or a rental agreement or even a mortgage that says, you're financing this for 30 years. Well, can I pay it off in 10? Yes. But can I pay for 10 and then walk away? Yes, but there's repercussions. So we gotta use wisdom, folks. Proverbs 21:29 says, wicked people are stubborn, but the good people Think carefully about what they do. Think carefully about what you do. A lot of times, we act out of emotion and maybe not make the best decisions. Proverbs 24:3 says, it takes wisdom to have a good family, and it takes understanding to make it strong. It takes knowledge to fill a home with rare and beautiful treasures. So, that's a good thing. So let me ask you, and I gotta ask you, how many of you actually say that you follow a financial planner budget? That's 3 of you, 4 of you, 4 of you. I know it's funny, okay? But typically those kind of people have a better grip on their finances than those of us that don't. I'm not bagging, don't get all hurt or anything like that. It's just common knowledge. If you have a plan, if you have a hand on your finances, then you know what's going on. How many of you have bounced a check before? Okay. And why is that? I thought there was money in the bank. Well, yeah. Well, you thought, but had you been on top of your finances, you wouldn't have bounced a check. Sometimes that happens because of the bank's fault. Very rarely. It's kind of like a computer, and you want to blame the computer for your problems, but typically it's the person inputting the information into the computer and not the computer.
Do you think that this is just a learned behavior? It's something that was never taught to us and something that maybe we're not disciplined to do, and because of the way things are now, we just look at our phone to see what the balance is. So, would you think that it would be a good idea, kind of like going to the gym and being healthy, to create new habits?
Going where? To do what?
Well, it applies to everything. So, because I wasn't taught. My parents were good with money, but they never taught me. So I think it's good that we teach our kids young when they're little.
I agree, and that's something that we've done with our kids. Is we've taught them. Some of them refuse to listen, but nonetheless, you know, that's why you have more than one kid, folks. So, just so you know, so that if one of them doesn't get it, maybe the other one does. Okay, and then eventually they can help the other one. But that's why we have, I think it was chapter 3 or chapter 4, you got those worksheets to work out budgeting, work out your obligations, work out your income, so you can see where you stand. I'll re-emphasize the fact that if you sat down and you really looked at where your money is going for a month or 2 months, it will blow you away. Because what we spend on the little stuff, I don't think any of us realize how much that little stuff adds up to the big stuff. You know, I mean, it's amazing, and I could cite different things, but nonetheless, even going and buying a Monster or a Red Bull every couple of days can run you over $100 a month. Okay, I'm not turning around and saying you should use that money for missions. I'm just saying that that's money that is being spent that you don't realize. And that $100 could be going towards something else, maybe reducing your debt. So we got to be able to, you know, it's hard when we go through these different topics. These are always calling for us to be able to look in the mirror and go, okay, here's the real deal. I really do need to work on this. And that's the first step in making things better, because if you want to walk around with your head in the sand and ignore that there's a problem, then you're never going to get better. So we have to be able to look at the big picture. The author once had a job that seemed to take all their knowledge, talents, and times, and he was the supervisor of a small group of people, felt as if they were always running at full speed. One day the boss told him something that stuck with him all his life. He said, I needed to take 1 hour a week of armchair time. And by that he meant I should sit down and reflect on what I was doing. What were my goals? Was I accomplishing them? Were there more effective ways or creative ways of doing things? And what were the team's needs? Was I missing anything? And even though that advice may sound simple, it's hard to follow. It's kind of like you've heard me talk about having a plan and a goal and taking steps to achieve that goal. You cannot ever achieve a goal if you're not taking steps towards that goal. So it goes back to a plan. And when you don't have a plan, when you have a family, whether it be just a spouse or there's kids involved or whatever the case may be, everything that you're doing really is affecting your team, your family, your spouse, your kids. I mean, if you are irresponsible with your finances and your child suffers in whatever the case, in whatever way that may be, that kind of really is on you. I know. Nobody likes to have the finger pointed at them, but if not you, who then? Whose responsibility is it? You're the parent. So, in the same way that in a business, you need that armchair time, it's hard to follow because we get so busy, we think we don't have the time, or we get so involved in what we're doing that we forget that we need that time. But your marriage, in the same way, needs that armchair time. Regardless of how frantic or busy your life is, it's a great idea for you and your mate to sit down from time to time to reflect on all the aspects of your lives together. Not just the finances, but all of the aspects. One good area to review is your money. Okay? And here's some financial questions that you and your mate could consider when you talk. Now listen, I know that finances, a talk, can turn into a disagreement, which can turn into an argument, which can turn into an all-out war. Finances are an extremely touchy subject, you know, and ladies, you know that your men are a little bit slow, okay? So we don't understand why you got to spend so much money on your nails and your hair and your shoes and there's just certain things that you all need or want to need in order to be a woman.
You would understand if we didn't do it.
True that. So it's important that we have that kind of stuff. Guys are different. Throw on some deodorant, maybe throw some gel in your hair, you're out the door. It's not the same with women. Guys, if you're not too embarrassed to admit it, how many of you go for manicures or even pedicures?
I keep trying to get him to go for a pedicure.
Yeah, Claudine's been trying to talk me into going. Okay, guys don't do that. I don't know if it's because you don't want to be sitting in that chair with a bunch of ladies, or it seems kind of foo-foo for you, or whatever the case may be.
I think it'd be a waste of money for me because I'd be messing it up the very next day at work.
Yes. Well, he's probably talking about manicure as opposed to pedicure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think men's ministry should go get pedicures.
Yeah. Men's ministry is making a day to go get pedicures. So all do it together. And probably freak out the entire salon that so what the? Anyway, when you sit down and talk about your finances, you got to talk about what are your beliefs, what are your values, are your financial decisions consistent with your beliefs and values? Because if you sit there and you have a conversation that goes, no, I really believe that we need to be putting money away. Listen, you think about it. I can't remember what the statistics said because I read it when I was like 40. And if you're young enough and you start putting away X amount of dollars, by the time you hit 40 or 50, you'll have over $1 million. Okay? With interest and everything. Well, interest is nothing right now, so that may be a lie. But the bottom line is you got to start thinking at a young age to put money away, even if it's $10 a month. Because at the end of the year, that's $120.
I wanted to say that we do need to think about the future because things are rapidly changing in our country when it comes to finances. What applies to the baby boomer generation does not apply to our generation. And what applies to us may not apply to the millennials or the generations coming out after that. There was a time that you can retire with a pension. And some people still have government jobs or whatever. But that doesn't apply anymore. There was a time where you did not need a high school education. You could take care of your family back in the day and still buy a home and do very well for yourself. And those things have changed. It's not like that anymore. We have to put more work and more effort into that. So we do need to talk about these things. We need to get wise counsel from people that know what they're talking about my daughter just came home from her economics class. The professor told the kids, you don't get financial advice from boomers that don't have finance background because they don't know what they're talking about. Their knowledge will not apply to you. And that was shocking to me, that this professor actually told the kids that the boomer generation's knowledge of money does not apply to them, so don't get advice from them unless they have a finance background. That was, she's not going to listen to us.
So it is, it's important, and things change. I mean, they really do change. And if you're sitting around thinking, well, that's okay because Jesus is going to come back and I'm not going to need to worry about that, you may very well be right. But you also may be very well wrong. Because a lot of people have been saying that for a lot of years, and I don't know the day, and you don't know the day, and we all don't know the day. So you need to be prepared one way or the other. Okay? Nobody wants to get to the age where they are 50 or 60 or 70 years old and you don't have nothing. Okay? That's an awful place to be. So when you have this conversation, do you and your spouse share the same goals and objectives when it comes to spending? For the home, for the car, for a vacation, for presents, for other major items. You know? I mean, Claudina is like, okay, we're 3 years into being our grandparents for the first time. And Claudina, just like many of you who are grandparents or probably will be grandparents, and you might have that mentality for your kids right now, but really, you know, she could be with Levi at the store, Grandma, I want this one. Okay, baby. But there's no money in the bed. It's okay, baby. That's where the credit card comes out. You know? I mean, she has a hard time saying no to my grandson, and she'll do above and beyond. And maybe that's the same thing with you with your kids or you with your grandkids. But those are things that you need to talk about so that you're on the same page. Even when it comes time for your friends' birthdays. Well, or you go to a wedding, you get invited to a wedding, and you've got it in your mind because it's your wife's friend, she wants to do it up right, and she's going to spend $100, and you were thinking like a $25 gift card to Wiener Schnitzel. You know? So, I mean, although you may laugh at my joke, the thing is that you really do need to talk about those things because you need to be on the same page. Are you comfortable with each other's jobs and hours? Do you think that either of you should work more? Of course, the ladies are saying absolutely. I think my wife should work more. He needs to make more. Or do you even think that they should work less? Or do you even think that they should be working at a different job? Because you know there's some jobs that probably aren't healthy for a relationship. There are some jobs that probably are better for single people to do than married people. It's kind of hard to be married and be a bartender. Right? Then on top of that, it's hard to be married and a Christian and be a bartender. Okay? So there's certain things, and I would think any of you that, you know, were pole dancers in the back, that's probably not healthy for your relationship to be still doing that. You know? So it's probably not a good idea. I mean, if you specialize that at home, that's a different story, and that's fine. But you got to talk about those things. What about, are you paying as you go, spending from savings or borrowing? You know? Nobody likes to live paycheck to paycheck. It's a horrible place to be. I know it. I've lived it. I don't like it because you don't know what's going to happen from one week to the next. Oh, God, you hear your kid sneeze. You're not getting sick. In the name of Jesus, you are not getting sick because we can't take you to the doctor. Heal them, Lord. Right? It's like everything now is, if they don't feel good, take a 7-Up. You're going to feel much better after you have a 7-Up. Okay? Huh? 7-Up and Vicks. Okay? So you have to ask yourself, are you saving money? Now, folks, I know you can say, well, I don't, I can't, whatever. If you're using cash in your daily life, you should be taking the change and just throwing it into a jar and not touching it. Okay? You can do that. Don't tell me you can't do that. If you're not using cash in your daily life and you're using an ATM or whatever, then you need to be able to, I don't care if it's $1 every time you get paid or $5, but put it someplace in an account or take it out in cash or put it somewhere where it's gone, out of sight, out of mind, and you don't touch it. We can all do that. Anybody disagree with me on that? Okay, just want to make sure. We've talked about having joint accounts. Do you have joint accounts, and do you both agree with this? If you don't have joint accounts, hopefully you are in agreement as to why you don't have joint accounts. If you don't have joint accounts, does one pay some bills, the other remaining bills? Do you guys agree with that agreement? You know, Claudina said many times, what works for us, or what comes out of the book, or out of a video, or whatever, that may not be the end-all answer as to everybody's situation. What works for one may not work for the other. So if you have separate accounts and you guys have sat down and figured it out, and that works for you, then God bless you. As long as that works, and you guys are communicating about it, then that's all good. So, let me ask you this. How comfortable are you with your long-term plans? You know, it's not for you to answer. I just want you to think about it. Are you comfortable with your long-term plans? Do you have long-term plans? Oh, you don't know, Pastor Allen. I just want to get through the week, man. I can't even think about 10 years from now or 20 years from now. You know, I can remember when Claudine and I first got married, and we'll be celebrating 19 years this year. But when we first got married, I was not thinking about retirement. I was thinking about now. I was thinking about the things that I want to obtain, what I want to live in the next 5 years, where I want to move, what I want to get. And I always had that mentality, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. And now I'm 50 years old and I'm worried, I'm worried, I'm worried, I'm worried. You know? And it's not a good place to be at any age to have such a concern over your finances. Now, we can go into the spiritual aspect of it, and God will tell you, don't worry about it. If I can take care of the birds, I can take care of you, and that's all good. God is our provider, and He always makes a way, and that's all good. But you are still required to have wisdom. You know, you cannot be all jacked up with your finances and go, but I'm cool, man, because God's my provider, and He's always going to make a way. Yeah, but God doesn't like stupid. You know? I mean, and he calls us to have wisdom. I know you're itching to say something.
I just wanted to say that we are older now, and we wish we could have done things different, but we did not know that the economy was going to take a turn like in 06, 507. We had no idea that was going to happen. We thought that we would always be sailing on easy street the way we were, and we thought, no problem, we have this, we can make money. Making money is easy. That's the easiest thing to do. And we now look back and we know that nothing is forever, that, there's ups and there's downs. And when it talks about making long-term financial plans, I wanted to share, I have a friend that's my age who's got a college student and one who's going to go to college now. We raised our kids together, and she said to me a couple of weeks ago, she said, I wish that I would have saved money for their college instead of blowing it on buying them the expensive clothes, the parties, the birthday parties, the barbecues with all the friends out at the house. She said, we spent so much money doing that, and now they're going into a little bit in debt to help their kids go to college, when they could have, given all that money or put it away for their kids. But they were balling, and now they wish they would have done things different.
And you go from balling to crawling. And it makes it tough. It makes it tough. So my point is that if I could encourage you to do anything, I would encourage you to make long-term financial plans. Okay? And you have to ask yourself, what are the long-range financial plans and dreams? Maybe you can't anticipate everything that's going to happen in life. No one has a crystal ball. You don't know what's coming down the road. But it's a good idea to plan ahead for such things as, you have them in your notes, raising kids. You know what the latest figures are on how much it costs you to raise a kid? It's well over $100,000.
A year.
And they're like that.
No, it's not. It's like that.
Well, Florida,
Yeah,
better job.
100,000, and that's if they're out of the house at 11.
I read it was $250,000.
$250,000. I believe that. Okay. What about long-term goals about buying a house? For those of you that are renting, I know there is really no one out there that's renting that would not like to say, I own a house.
Right.
It's a huge tax write-off. It's really nice to be able to not have to worry about people above you or below you or whatever the case may be. It's nice to have home ownership. What about helping kids through college? You have your opinions about that. I have my opinions about that. We will not share our opinions. That's just a suggestion from the book. Helping grandkids through college? Absolutely not, Claudina. Okay? Absolutely not. Okay? What about helping elderly parents? Okay, you have your suggestions on that. I have my suggestions on that. These are just suggestions. What about living in retirement? Now you're talking my love language. Okay? I want to think about at 50 years old, I want to think about what am I going to do? Because I don't want to work. I don't want to be that guy at Walmart. At 70 years old. I don't want to be the greeter. And if any of your relatives are greeters at Walmart, I apologize. That's not my intent. I don't want to be that guy. At 70 years old or at 65 years old, I want to be trying to ride a bike to the coffee shop down by the beach. You know, or at least getting towed behind a car on a bike down to the coffee shop down by the beach. Unexpected illnesses or other events. Those things happen, folks. And we have to be prepared, one way or the other, or at least to the best of our ability, or leaving an inheritance for children, grandchildren, church, or others. I'll leave that alone. Okay? Bottom line is, it is extremely healthy to plan ahead, and it's not healthy to worry. We have to think things through. We need to pray. We need to make the best plans that we possibly can, and then we need to put ourselves in the Lord's hands. Matthew 6:34 says, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow has its own worries. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So, it's a good idea if we look at the possibilities of making a savings and investment plan. I can tell you right now, savings will not make you any money. Okay? The interest that they're paying right now is ridiculous. Okay? It's just, there's no money to be made. But, I come from the business world. I'm a true believer that you can take $1 and turn it into $2 with very minimal effort. Okay? Everybody has the ability to do that. And I'm not talking about playing blackjack. I'm talking about being able to be minded enough to be able to come up with something to where you can make money. Okay? Most of us in this room have had times of living hand to mouth. Spending everything that we make as fast as we get it. But the Bible tells us to put aside something for the future. It's Proverbs 6:6-8. And you have it in your notes. It says, go watch the ants, you lazy person. Watch what they do and be wise. Ants have no commander, no leader, no ruler, but they store up food in the summer and gather their supplies in harvest. And then continuing on, in Proverbs 21:20, it says, wise people's houses are full of the best foods and olive oil, but fools waste everything they have. So, part of wise financial planning is to make a savings plan. Set aside, like I said, whatever it is, a little bit amount every month, and if you're only able to save $1 a month, do it. Because what you're going to do is, you're going to create a savings habit. Plan to add more money as time goes on, because a good beginning goal is to save enough to live for at least 3 or 4 months in an emergency. That ultimately is what any good economist will tell you that you should have. Actually, in reality, nowadays it's probably 6 months to a year that you should have stored away to be able to pay for all your living expenses for 6 months to a year, God forbid something happens. Okay? In addition to short-term savings, we got to learn how to make long-term investments. And that does not always require stocks and municipals and things like that. Ask Mike. He'd tell you Javita is a great investment, but that's another story for another day. So, there's different things that you can invest in. So you have to be careful about what you invest in. You need to take your time before you invest If you're looking for a financial advisor, just don't hire anybody, because people can talk a lot of smack. People are very good at flapping their lips and selling you on an idea, and that's how scams happen every single day of the year. Okay? And it's amazing to me how someone can call out of thin blue air and talk you out of money. That just blows me away. Okay? I don't know you, fool. I'm not giving you nothing. Okay? I just don't get that. Don't store up treasures or hoard. Don't store up treasures or hoard. That is a big one. It's smart to save and invest, but if we're not careful, we can go overboard. It's easy to get caught up in building a larger and larger fortune. Jesus said not to lay up treasures for ourselves and went on to warn against loving money. Matthew 6:19 through 21 says that God is more important than money. Don't store treasures for yourselves here on earth where moths and rust will destroy them and thieves can break in and steal them. But store your treasures in heaven where they cannot be destroyed by moths or rust and where the thieves cannot break in and steal them. Your heart will be where your treasure is. Matthew 6:24, no one can serve two masters. The person will hate one master and love the other, or will follow one master and refuse to follow the other. You cannot serve both God and worldly riches. Even James' warning against hoarding likewise should ring in our ears. James 5:3 says, your gold and silver have rusted, and that rust will be a proof that you were wrong. It will eat your bodies like fire because you saved treasures for the last days. It seems like these verses contradict passages that encourage saving for the future, but they don't. Okay? There's a difference between hoarding and reasonable saving. And likewise, there's a difference between saving large sums of money for personal pleasure and setting aside money you plan to give to a charity. The key is to realize that God gives us money to accomplish His plan and not our greed. That may be a tough pill to swallow, but that's what He does. Plan ahead for emergencies. Plan ahead for your kids' college expenses. Plan ahead for your retirement or even other legitimate purposes, but don't use these goals to excuse selfishness. It would be easy to identify so many needs that you never use your finances to glorify the Lord. Give tithes, special offerings now instead of waiting until you have a big bank account. We talked about tithing and offering. I'm not going to harp on that. You know, I will tell you this, the one thing that I find for me, if someone, usually the people that get mad when somebody talks about tithing and offering are the people that aren't giving. Because that guilt rises up in them, and it's like, well, you know, you shouldn't be talking about, are you giving? You know, because if you're giving, then really it's not talking about you. It doesn't apply to you. It only applies to the people that aren't giving. So that's where people kind of get their toes stepped on. So if you had to ask yourself, I think we save and invest, would your answer be too much, not enough, or right amount? It's rhetorical. It's a question that you need to ask yourself. Are you saving enough? Are you saving not enough? Are you saving just the right amount? Well, who knows what the right amount is, so throw that answer out. Okay? What is the right amount? It's either too much or not enough, you know? And so if you can say that you're doing too much or not enough, you got to think about what changes do you think that you need to make? Are there changes that you need to make? The book's going to tell you that they suggest making a will. One thing that we can all count on is the fact that we are going to die unless Jesus comes back first. And if we don't make a will, the government's going to decide how to divide your assets when you die. Well, you think, man, I ain't got nothing, so I am not worried about that. Well, regardless of whether you think you have nothing or not, even your personal possessions will get thrown out or held on by the state unless you decide where it goes.
You can do something small if you don't have, I can't talk about it. If you don't have a lot of money and all you have is a bank account, you can do something that's called a POD, payable upon death, so that one of your kids or one of your loved ones can go and get the money. And they don't have to wait, or it's not going to go into probate. So there's things you can do like that to protect your children. You can do that with bank accounts. I'm trying to think what else you can do it with. With investments too, if you have like a
Retirement
IRA,
accounts.
you can have a beneficiary, and then maybe you can have another one after that, so if something happens to that one, then somebody else can access the money without it going anywhere. It's very simple, just a death certificate will do if their name is on there.
IRAs,
Yeah, IRAs,
401ks,
life insurance.
life
you know that.
insurance,
Make sure-
everything.
If you have your spouse, if you die together, make sure that one of your kids is on there, that one of the responsible ones is on there to be able to collect if they both should die at the same time. And if that person's not around, you can have an extra beneficiary. on
Or
there.
maybe you have a friend that can be that director of your things.
Well, our kids are
Power
older.
of attorney.
What? No.
No.
Yes, no. I'm trying to think of trustee. Doesn't mean that you have to have a trust, but you can have somebody that you appoint as trustee over your stuff. Okay, so here's the thing that you need to take into consideration, because depending upon local laws, if your financial situation is simple, you can use a will using a form from an office supply or department store. If your situation is complex, it'd be wise to see an attorney in either case. Be a good steward and make a will. Okay? Will you make a will? So make and follow a budget. We talked about budgets. Most of the we talked about it. Most of the financial problems that we hear about could be avoided if people had made followed a budget. When you have a budget, there's no need to argue about whether there's enough money to buy new clothes. You just looked at the budget. If there's still money in the clothing allowance, then you can spend it. If the money's gone, you gotta wait. If you say, let's try not to spend any money while we pay off the bills, is not the same thing as making a budget. It leaves each person without specific guidelines and sets the stage for frustration and conflict. Because you can sit there and say, hey, let's try not to use the credit cards this month. Okay, I tried. I really did try. You got $900 on your credit card, but I tried. Okay? Is that going to be a frustration? Is that possibly going to be an argument? Right? Oh, y'all are quiet because that's probably happened to you. Right? You got to talk about those things. I literally, in our case, I have gone to Claudine and said, babe, I beg you, I plead you, I will do, please, give me your credit cards. Or please, don't, because we got this, and this. And it's one thing if I go up to her and I say, you're not using your credit cards anymore, because that we all know how that will end, and that will not end good for us, okay? But if I go up to her and I tell her, babe, listen, just so you know, we got this, and this coming up. And, the credit card thing, yeah, it's not, this month is not a good idea. You already have a microphone in your hand, don't you?
It's true. You have said that to me, and you've said it. I mean, you've said it nicely to where I get it. If you did come to me in a rude manner,
You spend money just to spite me.
no, I wasn't. You have to. The way you said it, he has said that. Please, babe. And it's not like. And then it used to be where I used to say, well, it's not like I'm out shopping at Macy's, and it's not like I'm out, but that doesn't matter. The bottom line is, the money is not there, and you should not be spending money and bringing that kind of stress to your marriage that you shouldn't be.
That blessing. That's what I'm allergic to spending money. The thing is that, again, just let me reemphasize the fact that when you guys use your credit cards, you are spending money that you don't have. That's just the bottom line. You're spending money you don't have. If you are the person that pays the credit card off at the end of every month, then you are financially responsible to be able to do that. But those credit cards are there for emergencies. If you're putting something on a credit card that okay, I can make $20 a month payment, you are spending money that you don't have. Because, listen, if it's $20 a month here and $15 a month there and $30 a month there, pretty soon you're getting more stuff in the mail than you know what to do with, and you're inundated. And then you become frustrated. And then you become, I can't even use a word. It feels walk around not owing anybody anything. It feels really good to just either pay, your true necessities. And any of you that have been there know that. It's really hard to being in debt is like being in slavery. It really is, for lack of better terms. Because you're saying that you're into that. Does every couple need a budget? Not necessarily. Okay? Some couples do fine without a budget, but that's rare. Okay? Most people need a budget. How many of you agree with me?
Yes.
Okay? A budget can help you do a lot of things. It ensures that you give tithes and offerings. It avoids arguments and expenses. It makes sure that you don't spend too much on some things and don't leave enough for others. It allows you to save money for major purchases. It sets aside funds for annual expenses like car insurance, property taxes. Most people, even when you sit down and figure out a budget, you don't sit down and think about birthdays or anniversaries, or you may think about your kids, but what about your buddies? Or somebody that gets married that you get invited to the wedding to, or somebody's anniversary, or whatever the case may be. Someone's going to retire. Those are things that you have to figure into your budget. When Claudine and I do that, we put $100 a month towards, surprises or whatever it is, Yeah, because every time something pops up, surprise.
So that month, there's several birthdays, you only may be getting $100.
Yeah, here's your $10 Wiener Schnitzel card. Happy birthday, okay? But $10 in Wiener Schnitzel gets you like 10 chili dogs, so why are you complaining? So, here, when you budget, guys, when you make a budget, debt can't sneak up on you from behind. You know when you're spending too much. You can't fool yourself into thinking it's all going to work out somehow next month. Because a budget gives you the opportunity to make choices. To see that if you spend $30 less on groceries each month, you can buy bikes for the kids at Christmas. Oh, snap. So, maybe $30 a month comes out to using coupons. Okay? But just use coupons on the things that you buy. Don't use coupons. Oh, I bought 400 packs of marshmallows because I got a 10-cent. Who's going to eat 400? Listen, okay? I gave you the forms for making a budget, so you have those things, okay? The next thing I would encourage you to do is record all your income and home expenses. I know, ain't nobody got no time for that. That's the first thing out of your mouth. That you want me to do something else, but like I said, forget about your phone, forget about your bank statements. Sit down and write down everything that you spend for a month or 2 months, and then categorize it. Okay? Utilities, rent, mortgage, whatever it is, car payment, insurance for the house or insurance for the apartment, insurance for the cars, eating out. Okay? Your 7-Elevens, your Circle K's, your Stop and Goes, Starbucks, and whatever it is. Whatever the case may be, okay? Whatever it may be, look at what you're spending, okay? Sometimes it's staggering when you finally look at it, because I know that Claudina did that recently, and wasn't that anything was really out of whack or anything like that, but you were like, oh man, I didn't realize I spent this much on my nails. I said, I did. But she actually caught it, and I never say anything about her getting her nails done. I would never deny her from doing that or anything like that. But it's like, why can't you just go buy them press-on nails? But she's like, but she actually made the comment of, wow, I spend a lot on my nails. I got to cut back and go less. But she caught that. And maybe it's not nails for you, maybe it's something else. But it's a great idea to sit down and look at that. And when you look at, when you write down every expense, write down every expense. I don't care if it's your McDonald's coffee. I don't care if it's your Red Bull at Circle K. I don't care if it's your M&M's at the bookstore. We have M&M's at the bookstore. It doesn't matter. You need to be, if you want a real picture, you have to include everything, and then you have to list what your income is. Don't go, well, I gross this much. What's your take home? That's what you budgeted on. Because gross means absolutely nothing. That's gross. Okay? And then you got to change your budget as needed. And wow, it's amazing. You've heard PA say this for so long, and it's right here in the book that says, don't believe your checkbook. Just because you click on your smartphone and go to your balance at your bank, banks make mistakes. On top of that, if you're not checking on a regular basis what's going on in your bank account, let me tell you this. I just got an email. Here, I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to share this with you because it was really good. It's from... No, but this is New Ways of Stealing.
Your mom sent you.
Yeah. A friend went to the local gym, placed their belongings in the locker. After work, they took out, after workout and shower, they came out, saw their locker open, thought to themselves, funny, I thought I locked the locker. They dressed and flipped the wallet to make sure everything was in order. Everything looked okay, all the cards were in place. A few weeks later, his credit card bill came whopping bill of $14,000. He called the credit card company and stated that he did not make those transactions, and customer care personnel verified that there was no mistake in the system and asked if his card had been stolen. He said no, but then he took out his wallet, pulled out the credit card, and yep, you guessed it, a switch was made. An expired similar credit card from the same bank was in the wallet. The thief broke into his locker at the gym and switched cards. The verdict is the credit card issuer said since he did not report the card missing earlier, he would have to pay the amount owed to them. How much did he pay for the items that he didn't buy? $9,000. Why were there no calls made to verify the amount swiped? Because small amounts rarely trigger a warning bell with some credit card companies. It just so happens that all the small amounts added up to a big one. Okay? That's scene one. It was when he got the statement, so probably 30 days, you know. Here's another one. A man at a local restaurant paid for his meal with his credit card. The bill for the meal came, he signed it, and the waitress folded the receipt and passed the credit card along. Usually, and we're all guilty of this, usually he would just take it and place it in his wallet or pocket. Funny enough, though, he actually took a look at the card, and lo and behold, it was the expired card of another person. So he called the waitress and she looked perplexed. She took it back, apologized, and hurried back to the counter under the watchful eye of the man. All the waitress did while walking to the counter was wave the wrong expired card to the counter cashier, and the counter cashier immediately looked down and took out the real card. No exchange of words, nothing. So she took it back and came with an apology, and this scenario actually happened to the guy that wrote this at a restaurant between the waitress and the cashier. So the verdict is make sure that the credit cards in your wallet are yours, okay? Check the name on the card every time you sign for something, and this card is taken away for even a short period of time. A lot of people just take the credit card without even looking at it, assuming that it has to be theirs, and puts it back. For your own sake, develop the habit of checking your credit card each time it's returned to you after a transaction. One more scene. Guy goes into a pizza restaurant, picks up an order that was called in, he paid by using his Visa check card, which is of course linked directly to his checking account. The guy behind the counter took his card, swiped it, laid it on the counter as he was waiting for the approval, which is pretty standard procedure. While he waited, he picked up his cell phone and started dialing. And he noticed the phone because it was the same model that he had, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. And then he heard a click that sounded like his phone sounds when he takes a picture. And when he gave back the card, but kept the phone in his hand as if he was still pressing buttons, meanwhile the guy was thinking, I wonder what he's taking a picture of. obvious to what was really going on, and then it dawned on him the only thing there was his credit card. So now he's paying close attention to what the guy's doing. He set his phone on the counter, leaving it open. And about 5 seconds later, he heard that chime that tells you that the picture has been saved. So now he's standing there struggling with the fact that this kid just took a picture of his credit card, and he played it off well because he didn't know that they had the same kind of phone. He probably never would have known it happened. And needless to say, the guy immediately canceled the card as he was walking out of the pizza parlor. And all he's saying is beware of your surroundings all the time. Whenever you're using a credit card, take caution. Don't be careless. Notice who's standing near you, what they're doing when you use your card. Beware of phones because all of them have cameras. Okay? So all that to say, why are you saying that? Because if you're not checking your account regularly, $5 here, $7 there, $3 here, you never know it. And I've told you this time and time again. I sit there, and I know you may think I'm nuts, but when I get my paycheck and I sit down and I do my bills, I get the statements in the mail. I don't like the e-statements and all that. So I get my statements in the mail. But I'll go on my bank online, and I have an Excel spreadsheet, and I actually type every transaction into an Excel spreadsheet. So as I'm doing that, ask Claudina how many times as I'm sitting down and doing the bills or doing my checkbook, babe, did you $4 at da-da-da-da-da-da? Yeah, that was this. Because I'm always being, no, it's not that I'm questioning her. It's like, this doesn't look familiar to me. As a matter of fact, I forgot to ask you about that one. There's another one that popped up from something that you didn't remember last time I asked you. So if you, no really, I'm not even playing, that's true. But so you need to check those things to make sure that everything is on the up and up because banks do make mistakes. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'll talk real quick. Last year, I got fraud on my tax return, and then that was a lot of work to get that straightened out. So right after that, I got LifeLock, and right after I got LifeLock, I got fraud. Someone opened up an account with my social security number, everything, a Verizon account, and LifeLock called me right away. They took care of it right away. In one day, somebody made 51 calls to Florida, different numbers, and the bill was around $370. And that would have been on me if I didn't have LifeLock.
Yeah.
They alert me on everything, and they take care of things right away. I've had a lot of fraud in the business accounts and stuff like that, but this was my tax return. My tax return, which was made up by somebody else, went to somebody else.
Right.
And so it's a big thing right now.
If you have, and there are a lot of services out there that offer that. I know that Experian offers one, and LifeLock is good. If you have good credit, you really should have one of those services. It's not very expensive at all. If your credit is horrible, then you really don't have anything to worry about because no one will be able to get credit on your credit anyway. So.
And also, don't leave your mail overnight. It's tax season, and this is when our mailbox get broken into.
Yeah, you just got to use wisdom. Bottom line, guys, regardless of all these things that we do, we need to realize that God's in control. Amen. Although we need to plan, it can be a great comfort to realize that God is ultimately in control. We do our part and then leave the rest to Him. If you look at Proverbs 16:9, it says, people may make plans in their minds, but the Lord decides what they'll do. And Proverbs 20:24 says, the Lord decides what a person will do. No one understands what his life is all about. Put trust in God, not in our plans. James 4:15 says, so you should say, if the Lord wants, we will live and do this or that. So when you plan ahead, you put the trust in the Lord, you walk in confidence knowing that you've done the best that you can, that God has a plan for us, and we can relax because God is on the throne. Amen? Yes. All right. So, let me give you some announcements. Anybody have any questions or comments regarding the session? Yes.
I have a question about James 5:3. Can you please explain me a little bit more what does this have to do? I'm sorry, I just didn't catch it.
Okay, the question was James 5:3,
Yes.
okay, and what it has to do?
Yeah, like, what do you mean by saying these verbs? Can you explain a little bit more, please, about it?
Well, let's do this, because I know that there's different versions of the Bible, so let me just look at a different version, and maybe that will give you a better idea.
What was the question?
She just wants to know James 5:3 because it's a little,
Is that basically reassuring that all your treasures in heaven or all your treasures down on earth ain't worth a squat?
Yeah.
That all your treasures that you should be building are the ones in heaven? Because they're everlasting? They're telling you that your treasures down in heaven is gonna rust and eat away just like our bodies would in the ground. And our treasures and stuff like that remain perfect in heaven.
did you like that?
Yeah, I loved it.
Did you love that? See, Mike, you can be up here. Let me just read you the New Living Translation, what it says. It says, your gold and silver are corroded. The very wealth you were counting on will eat away your flesh like fire. This corroded treasure you have hoarded will testify against you on the day of judgment. So, what he said was very good, Mike.
All right.
Okay, let me- So here's the deal. So next week, okay, they're gonna take an offering. Of course, as always, if you want something to go to Fusion, envelope's gotta say Fusion. Okay, find an envelope if you don't have an envelope. Next week.